I'm very interested in the idea of ghosts and why we as humans are interested in ghosts. The notion of kind of fear, of something that we're kind of terrified of. In our ordinary kind of lives, we surround ourselves with the ghosts of our own kind of departed, and we enter into conversations with them and we invoke their spirits, and we call that memory, and that is a kind of haunting. There's also the more sinister, kind of frightening notion of the ghost as an apparition, but it's always a person, it's a human. So it is a relationship with often the past, or a figure from the past. You know, and in lots of the stories about ghosts, they're kind of visitants, they're revenants, they're returning from the afterlife, very often to right an injustice. But is that notion of the persistence of the human spirit in some aspect? We're living here in the centre of Dublin, and I'm always fascinated by the sense that you walk around and there are layers of history. I mean, you walk down a street and you're aware of the levels of the city buried underneath. You know, it's a tiny, thin membrane, but there's a huge amount that has gone on. You know, most of the human life is not here. I mean, you walk around the Irish landscape, for instance, full of ruins of, again, that deep past, whether it's Newgrange or, you walk around Kerry and it's all of these old ancient kind of hill forts and so on. And so you're just aware of that kind of linkage to the past of kind of thousands of years ago. We are not all there is. I do like that thing of that sense of parallel lives going on. My one sort of ghostly experience really was kind of bound up with that. We were living in the country, we were staying in the country, in a place where we had a small kind of old cottage. You know that kind of pure darkness that you get in the country that obviously you don't get, because we live in an environment which is lit permanently. And walking with the dog late at night up this kind of completely dark country lane, and then suddenly getting this terrible sort of feeling that something wasn't quite right, and then hearing the sound of these creatures kind of coming down the lane. I just, okay, it's just dogs, must be wild dogs, whatever. But it was the reaction of my own dog that was the strangest, because the dog just kind of sank completely into himself and whimpered and was in a state of pure abject terror, is the only way I can describe it. So then I saw these two things, two what I presumed were dogs, go behind me, and there was a light on the front porch, and I turned around and I saw this creature. I wasn't sure whether it was a dog or a fox, but it just sort of turned around in the light from the porch and looked directly at me with these huge eyes, while the dog was pressing himself onto the ground, whimpering, and instead of what he would normally do would be run or attack or that kind of thing. And then the dog just disappeared into the darkness behind the house. So I just assumed, okay, this is just some kind of feral dog. And I was talking to somebody, the notion of kind of visitants from a kind of another life. But I found that I ended up writing about it later. It wasn't so much the experience of being haunted, but just the idea that you were kind of brushing lightly against a presence or a sense of another sphere of existence, maybe a poetic notion, as opposed to a verifiable ghostly experience. But there is something just from an imaginative point of view that is attractive about the notion. Whatever you are, you scared the dog and made him whimper. Welcome or warning, your eyes shone at the edge of the light, and the signs were all there. That absolute dark, the sound you made as you ran down the road, almost colliding with us before slipping into the field. Or you were nothing, neither curse nor blessing. You were yourself purely, your eyes blazing, caught in the porch glow where you circled behind us to take us in, cold-eyed, briefly curious and quickly gone. You left behind a living dark, the black road suddenly crowded, and the night filling like a corridor all of us are passing through, with hardly a breath between us.